Hello guys and welcome to the first episode of the Freeplay series of Planet Zoo. In this episode we are going to be getting the zoo set up with a basic entrance and a couple of exhibits. The exhibits and entrance in this episode are likely to change over the course of this series, as my skills with working in this game progress. As you can see here, this is the first time in the game. We have to turn some settings off. When the zoo is complete, I'll upload it to the Steam Workshop and you guys can play around with it. While we're on the subject of that, what I wish to do with this series is allow you guys to help design this zoo through your suggestions, which can be submitted through a form on the Discord, which is will be linked in the description. Okay, so here we are going to start working on the first exhibit in the zoo. So first, we're going to try to make a somewhat round exhibit, which will probably change throughout the series and likely even in this episode. I was playing around with the tools here, trying to figure out exactly how to adjust some stuff that need to be adjusted, because I haven't really played with this at all. It's completely unfamiliar. It's not the same as Planet Zoo and this type of stuff. It's not the same. I mean, it's not the same as Planet Coaster, which I'm more familiar with. The pathing system is very similar, or the same. Alright, so at this point we're going to start trying to get some of the staff buildings put in to allow for the zoo to get into a functional state. Which I cut most of this out, but we're just going to try to kind of place them somewhat towards the front of the zoo at this point. They'll likely move in one of the upcoming episodes, maybe an episode when we completely change around the front of the zoo. And we gotta move some trees to do this. Okay. I'm messing with some settings. Oh, we just had to went in and close the zoo just to stop getting the alerts about the zoo ratings and stuff like that. Alright, so now that we got the all of the staff buildings in, we'll go ahead and work on getting them all connected up to the main path system in the zoo. I found that this is really tricky to do based on the way I wanted to do it. This is not necessarily a downfall to the game, but just the pathing system that they have built in their experience into their games. And it's a little bit hard to do exactly what I wanted to do with it, because you can't quite connect them as evenly as you want to. It won't connect in a grid-based system if the building's already in. Okay. So at this point, I'm trying to play with the grid system to see if I can make it work to do what I wanted to do, but it doesn't want to do it. It doesn't want to connect to the gridded system without having to go in and move the buildings to connect them. Also, working with a tree. end up taking this all back out to make it work. Alright, so here we have it connected up to the main paths now. So now that they're connected to the main path, we're going to start working a little bit on the entrance, which will be brought up in another episode and redone. For now we're just going to do a very basic design, just to put something here. Very basic, just using wood panel walls and the African columns there to hide the buildings just a little bit from the main entrance. Alright, and then to be efficient, we're just going to kind of duplicate things and through to the other side of the path. In just a second. Alright, so here I'm just trying to remember where the duplicates buttons were to duplicate it in so I could extend it out a little bit longer. And we're just going to take that and cut it off so that I don't have to mess with the pillars anymore. There. Okay, so at this point we just flip it around and put it on the other side. After we get it to select what we want it to select. Still doesn't want to select what we want. So we'll go through and select everything to make it the way we want it to. And then duplicate it to the other side. Yeah. The duplicate tools can be a little tricky with this, to get this the way you want it to. Alright, so now we're going to look at the paths put in the first exhibit. The type of animals that I'm thinking of putting into this exhibit would be the smaller, non-big ticket type animals that'll draw a large crowd. So we want to affect the flow of people through the zoo as minimally as possible right with that first exhibit. Some things like tortoises, flamingos, small animals like that. Some animals that you wouldn't want to put here would be like elephants, lions, tigers, giraffes. Your like big ticket African animals. So there's quite a few options here. And I haven't... and when I ended up deciding to put in the flamingos, they're relatively easy animals to start with because they are birds. They're a bird. They require a little bit of water and they're in a small shelter. So I went ahead and purchased them right here. Awesome. Alright. Alright, now we're going to start working on putting the path around the exhibit and then get some staff hired. Now, this process did just did develop some things with the exhibit that meant we ended up modifying the exhibit a little bit into a slightly different shape, which you'll see here in just a moment. This pathing system's so fun. Alright, so here we're working on trying to figure out how to do the exhibit into a slightly different shape, so that the pathing can be done a little bit easier, a little bit better. So there we're getting the staff in, and then we'll once we get the staff in, we'll work on getting some animals in. Exhibit. So they're off to get the animals now, so let's see here. In just a second or two, we'll start working on putting some stuff into the exhibit for the animals, like some water, the actual proper terrain for them, plants. Alright, now that they're in, we'll go ahead and get started getting it set up. So the first thing we're going to do here is work on getting the terrain set up for the actual specific animal. Looks like alright, so we're going to start by digging out a pool, like wading pool for the flamingos, and setting the terrain up more so it's suitable for them. Looks like we're putting down some soil for to try to get the levels into the levels for flamingos. Looks like we just need some. There's rock. There's soil. Alright, cool. So now that those are set up in the right levels, we're gonna keep adjusting. Okay. So now we're gonna dig out a wading pool for the flamingos. I'm gonna try out with the terrain stamp first, but this is a little bit too deep and too steep. It's not like a shallow enough angle, so we're just gonna end up having to do this by hand, using the flatten tool and stuff to kind of push it around and make it a uniform depth, and then get some water put in. We gotta get that flamingo out of there so we can get the water in, because it won't allow us to put water down with the flamingo in the area for it. Of course, the one left there and the other one's getting back in. I like the water generating system in this, as it's a very nice volumetric system, but it has some downfalls to having, if the animals walk through, you can't do anything with it and you can't adjust the area around it once you've done it. And if the animals are even close to where you're trying to do it, it won't let you. You kind of have to have everything moved well away from it to be able to put it in. Yeah. Alright, so we're gonna move that one out of the way so we can get the water in. Now we see the nice wading pool for the animals, and it automatically adjusted the terrain around the outside edges of it to kind of replicate what you would see around the outside of a wading pool in natural exhibits. Alright, now that we have that in, we're going to work on putting in some plants for the flamingos. Excuse me. And then a very basic shelter for them as well. And at least try to get a temporary shelter built for the flamingos after we get some plants into here. That would probably only last throughout this episode. Yeah, and if you guys are liking this content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to help support the channel, you can go to the Patreon through the link in the description. Alright. We're trying to kind of meet the needs of the flamingos by... I didn't see that. By getting some plants and animals in there, or yeah, plants and trees and things that look somewhat natural. Some stuff that we put in didn't quite work for flamingo. So there's not being to be too many trees because the flamingos really don't need too much tree coverage. We do try to get it pretty natural looking with all the plants, plants. I don't know. To get a couple small trees put in here, add a little bit of shade for the animals outside of their exhibit, and that. Alright, so now we're going to start getting some enrichment and food and water and that those basic life needs put in here. The first thing we go ahead and put down is water. We do this with the water pipe. Simple fact that way we aren't running into an issue of keepers not visiting enough to provide enough water for them. It's just always there. And then a food bowl. No. I did make the mistake when I put this in at first of not selecting the animal, so some of the things that are put in here don't quite work for them. And now we're putting in the very basic temporary shelter. Okay. Get some. And we expand this out with a little bit of a custom made shelter to just to kind of provide a little bit more shelter space, because there's 4 of them currently. We just use some of the plank arches, wooden plank arches, and some corrugated iron roof pieces, flat roof pieces, to make up this temporary shelter. And then in another episode we'll make the shelter a little bit better and a little bit nicer. Or metal. It might have just been a metal. Okay. We still seem to be... Now we're working a little bit more with the actual base enrichment for the animal. And we do filter it here for... the flamingos. That way we only get enrichment items that would benefit them. Alright. Once we get this down, we'll start working a little bit on some lighting in the exhibits and on the pathways. And we opened up the zoo as well. Adjust the price just a little bit there, so hopefully we can get a little bit more income into the zoo. Because at this point in the series, we were trying to actually run this, or we had to have an income. Okay, so we're playing here with the lighting within the exhibit. We just want some basic lights and kind of light up the exhibit just a little bit. And the path lighting. One thing I found with the lighting in this is that um, with this, the lighting in this game is a lot fewer options than in like Planet Coaster. So I feel like I would want to see some more lighting options in this game, because while lighting may not be features like that most zoos necessarily have to have, it's just a very basic thing. There's very few options for making the lighting look realistic and making it the way that you want to light things. I found that the only ones that really worked really well for lighting the exhibit without having lights just standing in the middle of the exhibit or big bright obvious lights were the very basic um, wall mount lights, path lights. You know, the lights really don't do much other than just add a little bit of a light into the exhibit so you can kind of see a little bit in there. Most zoos aren't open at night, so lighting up the exhibits isn't really too big of a deal. This is just add a little bit of effect into the exhibit, provide a little bit of viewing for when it's a little bit darker out. Because they really don't do much for lighting towards the center of the exhibit, just around the edges or on the fences. See, now we're looking at it completely done, like a slightly dusk time, but it looks okay for what we needed it to. This is all temporary. The things are probably going to change within the next few episodes. So, I'm not sure what I'm doing there. Can't get back anymore. Alright. So we're just checking some settings for the actual habitat. we're going to try to get... See, it looks like all of the stuff, the needs for the animals are met. Alright, so now we're going to start playing with a little bit with like the heaters and stuff to allow for us to make the exhibits where they can work no matter what the weather is. They will probably only really be used inside the enclosed shelters of the for the animals to be a little bit more realistic, because you're not going to try to heat an outdoor exhibit. It's just not realistic to do so. The amount of power that you would need would be insane. But heating the inside of the shelters, you can make a smaller, little bit smaller holding exhibit within inside that the animals can live in when it's too cold or too hot out for them. So, which is part of why these exhibits will likely be completely changed in a few episodes, after I'm a little bit more familiar with the building and stuff in this game. Because many zoos have indoor-outdoor exhibits for the animals, so that when the weather's right outside, that they can go outside and we're playing with now we're looking at the temperature for the animals so that the heaters can be set up right, so that it's the right temperature for the animal. One thing I wish that this game did a little bit better when it comes to the heaters is make it so you can adjust an entire habitat versus having to go to each one and adjust it. If you choose to, you can adjust the entire habitats and have them all the same. And make it so that you could adjust the area that the heater covers a little bit. So, because like, if we're trying to just heat their indoor or somewhat indoor shelter, or their sheltered area, we're heating a huge area outside of their shelter as well, because the heater's range is too high. While this may, if this was adjustable, we could make it so it maybe heats just outside of the shelter or something similar. Now that we've played with those, we're gonna go work on to a slightly larger exhibit. For multiple animals. Once this exhibit gets finished, I'm not sure that I really am going to keep it. At least not as an exhibit. At this point though, the video's getting a little long, so I'm probably just going to time-lapse the rest of the video. Because this is just a very basic exhibit for African safari. And it's probably not even going to stay after a couple episodes. We'll probably be gone. I'm probably going to break up the animals a little bit into separate exhibits. watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you wish to support the channel, you can become a Patreon at the link in the description, or make a single donation with the donation link in the description. Thank you guys again for watching. Have a great day.